This is a presentation of SBE 15, New York City.
Okay, so without any further ado, unless anyone else has anything they would like to mention, I'll toss it over to our friend, Editor-in-Chief of Radio World Magazine, Mr. Paul McLane.
Thank you. And David, thanks a lot. Now I have Hogan's Heroes theme in my head. Thank you very much for having me back. A real pleasure to be invited by my friends in New York, city of my birth and where I grew up in the New York area. So always love to see you guys. And yes, next year, please have that cover slide illuminated with some proper FAA approved power lighting. Because we don't want to have any accidents. So let me see if I can share my screen here. I started off last year talking about AI, and while I don't like to repeat myself, the things happening with AI, as we were just chatting about, are truly important. So right off the top, the president and CEO of the NAB knew that AI was going to be a big theme. Curtis Leggett talked about in his opening welcome, he talked about the dangers of artificial intelligence fueling disinformation, as well as putting broadcasters' assets at risk. And at the same time, he said that broadcasters shouldn't lose sight of the fact that AI presents opportunities during a time of significant media disruption. As Conrad alluded to a few minutes ago, everybody's talking about this at every company across our industry. Leggett called the upcoming election the most consequential of our lifetime. And he said he worries about citizens' their abilities to distinguish fact from fiction. He wants broadcasters to be part of the solution. The AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act, if that passes, as you probably know, federal regulators would require car makers to include AM broadcast radio in their new vehicles at no additional charge. It hasn't passed yet. It probably will, which itself is pretty remarkable how quickly support came together for that. My own feeling is we might be debating specifically AM right now, but it's easy to imagine a debate down the road about broadcast radio in general in the dashboard and whether it should be protected. So if this passes, it'll be important for FM stations and for radio's overall future as well. Daniel Anstandig was the guy who woke everyone up last year by introducing Radio GPT. This year, he was promoted to giving the keynote session on Monday, where he shared the stage with a humanoid robot named Amica. They discussed data findings about how audiences perceive AI. I had a short clip here, but it's the audio is not functioning, so I'm not going to. Oh, wait, can you hear it?
No.
All right. Well, so Futuri's Daniel Anstandig presented a study along with his robotic friend here about audience perceptions of AI, and he said audiences now expect that media are going to use AI. Audiences, he said, believe they've already experienced it on the radio and television. His main point was that audiences believe AI will help media. He said they believe that AI will help choose better news stories, better music, better content between the songs, better weather forecasts, better commercials. Of course, he's pitching the whole concept here, but he said audiences are ready for AI voice content on the air, although he emphasized that listeners want to be aware. They want full disclosure. Stations need to be open with audiences about using AI to build trust. He emphasized that. This is a sample of the findings that he gave. It's too much to absorb here. Futuri is putting a positive spin on this, saying that audiences are ready for AI generated content. AI itself is being used, I found in doing my own research for Radio World, on a lot of radio stations around the country already, typically with synthetic voices, typically overnight. But the next question will be, can it interact? And Futuri has a product called Co-Host AI, which facilitates interactions between human hosts and AI personalities, which is kind of would be the gold standard. So, where will this take us? How far will we get down toward where the AI and the live talent can really interact in real time? It looks like we're getting close. Futuri didn't actually have a booth at the show, so if you wanted to connect with them, you had to go to a session. I don't know of any AI co-hosts on live shows yet. If you guys do, let me know. This picture is of AI Tori. She's the overnight host of a station owned by NRG Media in Iowa. I call her she, but of course she's a fake. Still
Paul,
hearing me okay?
Yeah, it's just, have
Yes.
you noticed she only has 4 fingers on her hand?
Isn't that lovely? It's always the details, isn't it? My publisher, John Casey, asked me, why are these AI images always so dystopian? I don't know. Maybe the AI is trying to tell us something, or maybe it's telling us something about ourselves and what we're afraid of. But it's true. I saw an AI image a couple days ago, and it was the same thing. If you look closely, they still have to figure out how to get those hands right. Other companies at the show with AI presence, Radio.Cloud, Enco, Super Hi-Fi, Waymark, Veritone. I mean, they're proliferating. And what's interesting is just the instances in which these products are being used. Stations are using them to create instant spec spots for their clients. That's a big application, audio and video spec spots, but also drafting marketing emails, identifying prospects for the sales team, and writing computer code. But going back to that issue of audience perceptions, the folks over at Jacobs Media do their tech survey every year, and they asked about AI perceptions too, and they got a different vibe. 3/4 of core radio listeners told Jacobs they have serious concerns about AI replacing radio hosts. And he summarized the findings by saying that using AI in place of live talent is a deal breaker for most respondents. He specifically asked about 3 different applications for AI on the air, saying, how would you feel if they were reading commercials? How would you feel about station IDs? How would you feel about replacing live personalities? And that was the big issue. That's that big red bar across the top. And that's where people really perked up. Jacobs emphasizes that his research shows that these days, what broadcast radio still has going for it is personality. It's what people want to tune into more than music, where they can get just about anywhere. And so he says, don't shoot yourself in the foot by going away from the personality that sets you apart. I mean, all this could change. There's a lot of uncertainty in the culture about AI and our own opinions of it. We'll probably all start to get more comfortable with it over time. Where does that settle out for radio? It's kind of hard to say. Fred Jacobs says radio should start with the question, how can we use AI to create a better experience for our customers? But unfortunately, in my own opinion, a lot of times radio falls down on that, and new tech comes along and it uses the new tech to shave costs instead. So we'll see what happens. We just did an ebook on this a couple of months ago. I put the content together myself, and I was really, I found it very, very interesting to talk to broadcasters about what they were doing and to suppliers about what they're doing. So if you're interested, check out the ebook. RadioWorld.com/ebooks is where all those are found. Now, why is this boring chart on the screen? I was blown away when I got a look at the in-vehicle visuals report that was released by the company Q just before the convention. Q does synchronized radio ads for car displays. They sent a researcher out to car dealerships, to sit in the top 100 top selling new car models in the United States, and he gathered information from each vehicle, like what radio service does it have to start with? Does it have AM, FM, Sirius XM? What does it have? Is there a dedicated radio button? Does the car support PS data and radio text? Does it display HD title and artist and album art? And then Q put together a web page that lists those findings for each make and model of the top selling 100 vehicles. I was stunned by this collection of data, which anybody can access. And he took pictures. Now, none of us has the time to go out and sit in hundreds of cars, and none of us has an appreciation really of how much variety there is and how our stations show up. Maybe David Layer at NAB, but there's not too many people that have seen 100 different displays. But here at this site, you can just go in, if you drill down on that car, and you can see, okay, here's what my station, my RDS, my HD metadata would look like, not on a random dashboard, but specifically on a Buick Enclave Essence 2023. I think it's very powerful. Q also published some findings. For one thing, they found out that right now, 2 out of every 3 new cars sold in the United States has HD radio installed. 2 out of 3. That's important to know if your station doesn't broadcast HD yet. But a big exception is General Motors. GM only supports HD in some Cadillac models. Q also found there's a growing number of cars that let you access your audio sources directly from the dash. So you don't need a phone in those cars anymore to get Alexa or Apple Music or other sources. And that's going to be an increasingly important trend as the car really becomes a computer. It all reinforces that metadata matters and dashboard quality control matters. So if you're interested, check out the Q website. It's QUU is the spelling of that company. Events for engineers continue to be a strong point of the show. That includes the Nautel users group. Nautel kindly invited me to return to give opening remarks at the Radio Tech Forum, and some of what I'm sharing here was in that presentation. They had more than 300 engineers. I believe I heard a Nautel person say that while they didn't actually break the record that goes back to before the pandemic, this may have been the second largest NUG ever. And that's notable to me, particularly that, NAB a couple of years ago now has moved the first day of exhibits to Sunday. And some of those events that were, I've always traditionally been held on the weekend, had to make a decision about whether they too were going to adjust, and Nautel stayed on Sunday morning. So it's nice that they continue to draw well. The Association of Public Radio Engineers was happy with the turnout at their public radio engineering conference. They had more than 100 people. They had topics on things like AI, FCC compliance, tower maintenance, HD time alignment was a big one, and virtualizing the head end. These are a sampling of pictures that Jim Peck took for me there. 3 new members on the board of APRE, Ralph Hogan, Badri Munapala, and Ivy Shepard, and the officers of the association stay the same with Scott Hanley as president. The group also honored Michael Beach there on the left photo, upper left center. He's the outgoing vice president of distribution at National Public Radio. And they also saluted Joby Sprinkle and Paxton Durham for their work in public radio. Overall, the show drew about 61,000. That was down about 5% from last year. Attendance numbers are always interesting to those of us who watch trends and major trade shows and speculate about whether the show will get back to the pre-pandemic levels. Before the pandemic, the most recent show was 91 or 92,000. And then right after COVID, it was a little over 53,000. It grew last year to more than 64. So now this is a slight step back from that. The NAB was talking about their success bringing in new attendees. They said that 54% were first timers, which they defined as people who haven't been since 2017, if ever. That's not my definition of a first timer, but you get the point. That a lot of people that were there had not been there in what is that, 6-8 years. There were about 1,300 exhibitors, including around 200 first timers, and international attendance was up a tick to 27%. People always ask me, did the show feel busy? I spent a great deal of my time in the West Hall, the new hall. That's where a lot of radio companies are. I'd say the first day, Sunday, was moderately busy without being packed. The second day was the busiest in the West Hall, I think. But by Tuesday, things had really fallen off. The last day or two of the convention is slow on the floor. Inevitably, it makes you wonder if they need that last day. The convention center is undergoing a big renovation of the older parts, $600 million project over several years to get those sections up to snuff with the new West Hall. This year, North Hall was closed, and here you can see the construction at the entrance of the front of the older part of the complex. There wasn't really a huge impact on foot traffic. Things moved along pretty well, but most of the radio companies have been in West and Central lately. So next year, we might see a little more of an impact when Central Hall will be closed. If you haven't been to Vegas in a couple of years, oh, there's my drone. I found this drone in the program and I had to put it in. If you haven't been to Vegas in a couple of years, I thought I'd show you this photo of the convention center. It's an unusual view, but it gives you a sense of how massive the expansion is. The West Hall is here in the front, and the entire, what I'll call the legacy convention center, north, central, and south, that you probably know, that's all behind that monorail track there. And everything in front of that is the West Hall. The whole complex now has 2.9 million square feet of exhibit space. It's really massive. Important regulatory decision came down recently, not long before the show, and people were talking about it there. The FCC allowing FM geo-targeting. It unanimously approved the concept of allowing FM stations to originate programming on boosters for 3 minutes an hour. The idea being that stations could target a weather forecast or a traffic report to a very localized specific area, or more to the point, that they can sell targeted commercials into very small slivers of their broadcast footprint. The FCC hasn't finalized the rules yet. For now, it's going to allow existing boosters to originate programming under 1-year experimental authorizations. and then those can be renewed. In fact, those rules officially took effect today, May 16th. The NAB and many radio groups fought this and are still fighting it. They're afraid not only of interference, but of confusing listeners and driving down ad rates. But it's a big win for geo broadcast solutions, which makes the system called zone casting that uses synchronized boosters and antennas to overlay geographically localized signals in these areas. Some folks say this is going to revolutionize FM. Other people think it's truly disastrous. Personally, I think it's going to find its place in the ecosystem, just like translators for AM did, like HD radio translator plays did. But we'll have a better idea soon as these actual cases start to come online. An engineering session at the show put the emphasis on EAS partial county alerting. Broadcast signals don't stop at the county line, as you know, and PCA works by dividing a county into subdivisions or partitions, and the broadcaster chooses which partitions apply to their area and programs that information into their EIS gear. The idea is to increase the credibility of weather activations when the audience doesn't keep hearing warnings that don't apply to them. A good case is Clark County, Nevada. It is used there. That is where Las Vegas is located, and there's a big urban center, and then there's lots and lots of land with not a lot of people. So it makes sense for them to have a system like this. Adrian Abbott of the Nevada State Emergency Communications Committee was there speaking about it with representatives of NOAA and the National Weather Service. If you're interested in this topic, I had an interview with them that's available on the Radio World website. If you go to radioworld.com and just type PCA into the search field, PCA for partial county alerting, you'll get that story. The FCC used to publish self-inspection checklists, but it stopped updating those 14 years ago. And of course, the rules keep changing, they don't stand still. At this show, the SBE and the NAB released their own fresh guidelines, starting with FM and TV versions. These are not official commission documents approved by the FCC, but they most certainly will help you stay in compliance. They're designed to help stations as well as the inspectors that work in the Alternative Broadcast Inspection Program. That's a photo of Blake Thompson from a story we did about ABIP program. When I mentioned these new guides at the Nautel event, one engineer grabbed me afterwards to get the details. He said his company devotes a lot of time trying to make sure all employees are aware of how to keep stations in compliance, and he thought this was going to be a really helpful thing for him. These are available for download from the SBE website and the NAB website. They are free to members of either organization. Now turning to the technology supplier community, 3 familiar companies have merged: MaxConnect, Angry Audio, and Logitech. They have formed Triple Helix Technologies. They will make an intriguing combination. The new company now includes brands like MaxConnect Wireless, Studio Hub Wiring, Chameleon Processors, MK Technical Services, and Logitech AOIP consoles, as well as the Angry line of widgets and gizmos. It's also an intriguing combination of business personalities. Josh Bone of MaxConnect becomes CEO. Mike Dosh of Angry Audio heads product development, and Tag Borland of Logitech heads technology. They are the equal co-owners of the new company. And they are positioning themselves as the provider of products and services that offer major market performance on small market budgets. A lot of engineering experience there and a lot of business experience. Not an item from the NAB show, but of interest to the NAB radio community is that the FCC recently granted an application for a construction permit to WQVR in Webster, Mass. For licensed operation at night. Noteworthy because WQVR was already licensed to operate by day with its high efficiency broadband antenna developed by Worldwide Antenna Systems, shown there. The HEBA is a dual feed antenna designed to have a much smaller footprint than a standard guide tower with quarter wavelength ground system for medium wave operation. You may recall the news coverage of the technology dating back to the 1990s under the name crushed field antenna. Development work has been going on since then, and Worldwide Antenna Systems partnered with this station to prototype various designs of this antenna under experimental daytime operation. It began full-time broadcasting by day in 2016 with 1 kilowatt, and after its RF proof was accepted, it received a license to operate daytime in 2018. The engineering team at the station includes Kurt Gorman, David Maxon, John Garrett, and Grady Moats. They then ran nighttime interference analyses to confirm whether the interference contour was within FCC limits, and they submitted their findings to the Media Bureau this February. The antenna is 75 feet and sits on 2,500 square feet of land, and the proponents, of course, believe that with reduced height and no need for a large ground system, an antenna design like this could be a way for AM stations to monetize their land. There's also no longer a need to tune the station in the spring and fall because of changes in the weather. Last time I checked, the station was expecting to receive its license to cover to transmit after sunset in the next few weeks. While I'm talking about interesting tech developments, I do want to put in a plug for our ebook library. We've published 120 of these over a decade, and we generally now put out one every month on a given topic. I'm deeply involved in these, and they are free for readers. So if you haven't checked them out, I hope you'll dip in. It's radioworld.com/ebooks. I mentioned the one on AI, and we also recently published our annual peek into new studios in January. And then just a few weeks ago, we posted this one on the software-based air chain, the trend of putting more parts of critical infrastructure into software and integrating into other products, something that companies like Nautel have been vocal about. The classic example, of course, is the integration of PPM encoding into audio processors. And I had a nice interview in that ebook with Nick Mannion of Nielsen about it. Speaking of software, this partnership of three companies had some people talking. They call it EAS at the Edge, a concept that they call it a fresh approach to simplify EAS implementations with software standards and AOIP techniques. The companies are Digital Alert Systems, Nautel, and Telos. That's Bill Robertson and Ed Sarnecki of Digital Alert Systems. They point out that traditional EAS deployments require cascading layers of hardware and multiple boxes, possibly even one per transmitter, even in the same market. And they're promoting a hybrid network edge approach to EAS. They say it provides practical benefits while preserving public safety functions and adhering to FCC regulations. They talk about placing key hardware at the edges of your air chain, an idea that they say that has worked in video environments and is proven there for years. They use IP-based content distribution and control to insert emergency messages via LiveWire into a software-based air chain. EAS inputs at the closest point of alert reception are decoded and filtered, and then the audio, the control, and the alert metadata of the forwarded messages are encapsulated in an IP format to be passed through the station's IP network to target devices. So at the end of the day, a broadcaster can geo-target alerts to ensure they're routed correctly, and a single edge input node can be shared across multiple streams in a one-to-many configuration. There's other benefits that they talk about too. And on the previous slide, I mentioned that ebook about software-based air chains. These two gentlemen wrote a white paper about this whole concept that's in that ebook. So again, the software-based ebook on our ebook page. My drone is back. Okay, turning to products that caught my eye on the show floor, Dielectric has a new FM antenna, the DCRE. This fills a gap between its lowest power DCRT model and its higher power ring antennas. This model is for stations that need input power ratings up to 4 kilowatts per bay. The E model can stack with up to 12 bays, and each bay weighs only 18 pounds. These can be ordered center or end fed, and radomes, of course, are available too. Also from the world of RF, ERI introduced a new FM bandpass filter, the 940 series. It's a compact model with an unusual form factor. In fact, the company says this is the smallest footprint FM bandpass filter capable of handling 5 kilowatts average power. It uses a 4-section single cabinet design, and its footprint is less than 18 by 21 inches. It's rated up to 3 kilowatts at the output with convection cooling or 5 kilowatts with forced air cooling. Davicom offers an ecosystem of remote site management products. New to its lineup is Neuro. This is a rackable box that allows you to mix and match general purpose input and output boards to give you the I/O count you need. It occupies one rack unit and is just 3 inches deep. Your boards go into 5 slots in the chassis. There's a board with 8 analog inputs, another with 8 digital ins, and one for 5 relay outputs. The Neuro can be ordered with various combinations. And speaking of site management, Burke Technology is offering a package for rack room environmental monitoring. It provides early warnings of abnormal environmental conditions in your room before they can cause expensive equipment failures. So this system can detect HVAC failure, power outages, smoke, flooding, unusual levels of fan noise, a temperature rise in the racks, excessive humidity, and even intrusions. The package includes a climate guard environmental monitor and sensors for things like flood, smoke, and humidity. And a sensor array has 3 pre-wired temperature sensors for mounting in the rack at the bottom, the middle, and the top, so you get a real-time view of heat rise. Sensors also track changes in light and sound levels. Interesting system. The monitor can work standalone or integrated with a Burke Arc Plus on the network. You may be familiar with program delay products from 25/7 Systems. That's part of Telos Alliance. These have been around for a while, removing objectionable content from live programming. But new this year is PDM-X, program delay software. So this brings that functionality to the virtual realm. It's a software implementation of the PDM2 program delay manager optimized for AOIP and virtualized production. The cost about $2,700. It can be hosted on your premises using an off-the-shelf server or on cloud-based platforms like Amazon or on this new hardware platform that Telos has introduced that's called the AP3000. This was among the products that won our Best of Show award. And if you're wondering what we're doing here, Jeff Stedman was giving out these little foam toys in the shape of a bomb with the letter F on them as a reminder of why program delays are important. So here we are tossing around a few F-bombs. Gates Air says broadcasters that use satellite for program syndication and large-scale content delivery are facing challenges after the C-band repack, like diminished capacity and rising operational costs. So it has a software release coming next month to help networks and syndicators manage local ad insertions through Intraplex AOIP products and cloud networking platforms. It says that the approach provides another reason for broadcasters to transition from satellite and take advantage of the benefits of the cloud. The software capabilities are supported on the Intraplex Ascent platform and on its IP-Link AOIP codecs. In a typical scenario, a customer's traffic manager will interface with a head-end-based codec or the Ascent system to trigger virtual metadata that activates local ads for the affiliates at defined times, and then it will switch back to national programming at the conclusion of the ad break. Triggers are scheduled in the Intraplex platform, which automates the delivery to affiliates without needing local manual intervention. Super Hi-Fi is doing some interesting things. For one example, it made a joint announcement with Orban of an addition to the Optimod product line. They called it the Optimod 5950 Super Hi-Fi Edition, and they call it an all-in-one transmitter-based cloud playout appliance, which combines Orban processing and Super Hi-Fi's AI programming. It also uses HLS Plus. That's the streaming technology that Super Hi-Fi introduced a few weeks ago. Odyssey is using this on 700 of its online stations, referring now to HLS Plus. With that, stations can deliver their broadcasts and metadata over the air, but at the same time, create interactive, personalized versions of the exact same content to deliver to mobile apps and smart speakers. You've heard me talk about DTS AutoStage before, the entertainment platform from Xperi that combines linear broadcast with IP content. It was developed, of course, with radio and audio as its anchor, but now it has evolved to include video through what the company is calling the DTS AutoStage video service powered by TiVo. TiVo is part of Xperi, as you probably know. Xperi says there is appetite and demand for video entertainment in the car. In fact, the company's CEO was featured in Forbes just recently saying there's a seismic shift happening and that younger adults in particular are coming to view the car as a third space. It used to be Starbucks was the third space. You know, there's the home, there's the office, and you need a third space for socializing, working, and relaxing. And so we can probably expect to see more from the company in this era. BMW has rolled out the video service in some of its vehicles, and at the same time, Xperi is also exploring the gaming side of in-car entertainment. So more to come. You have to excuse these pop-ups here. Also on the floor, Wheatstone highlighted System Link, its FM MPX over IP transporter Wheatstone has added RIST, Reliable Internet Stream Transport Connectivity. With this, System Link can transport your signal, your FM, MPX plus HD or DAB signal at low latency across IP links of any capacity, and it can do it uncompressed or using an optional micro MPX codec. This is available for Wheatstone's audio processors like its Layers FM software, which can be hosted on your local server or run in the cloud. It's also compatible with existing STLs and audio processors. I didn't show it here, but Wheatstone also had 2 new Audio Arts consoles. These are very thin tabletop digital consoles, yet with features like USB, direct-to-fader inputs, and Bluetooth in one model. I think that with more LPFM stations coming on the air in the United States, companies that make consoles in the lower price ranges, like the Audio Arts arm of Wheatstone, will be seeing a lot of demand for that. And on that theme, Arrakis has the H10 console. This is a 10-channel board with 2 stereo outputs. This is an analog board that can be controlled with software from anywhere. The pitch is that it combines the simplicity and reliability of analog with the flexibility of digital technologies, and it costs under $3,300, including a license for the controller software that runs on a Windows PC. This board has 10 input channels and 2 output buses. It has 2 mic preamps built in, and 2 more can be added. The software includes 12 user presets that allow you to choose which channels are on and off. And since the faders of the board itself are not motorized, Arrakis gives you the ability to switch to pre-fader levels with it. Interesting product. Innovonics has been on a roll too with new products, and it had just an immediate hit last winter when it began shipping this, the 677 Triple Tuner. It's an EAS monitor receiver in a half rack package. It gives you 3 built-in frequency agile receivers, each of which is programmable for AM, FM, or NOAA weather. Each has a balanced mono XLR audio output to serve as EAS monitor or your off-air monitor in your facility. It's a little box with a lot of useful screens. Just one of them is being shown here. Retail price $2,300. Another longtime friend of the industry is Comrex, of course. They've debuted a major feature update for their Gaggle remote contribution service. Gaggle, which was introduced a few years ago, enables you to send and receive audio through a web browser to a Comrex hardware codec. It supports up to 5 remote participants in one session. New this year is Hotline, which the company says makes a dramatic improvement in the quality of the cell calls for on-air use. Gaggle with Hotline gives you a 10-digit phone number for your guest or reporter to call from their mobile phone. The audio will be presented within the interface in HD voice quality to put on the air. And I should add that Comrex is introducing a free version of Gaggle called Solo for a single guest to connect to the studio. Also new, the Shure SM7DB. SM7, of course, is iconic. It's been around for many, many years. Recently, well, not recently, but it later expanded into the podcasting space. They've got a version for podcast. This is an XLR dynamic vocal mic that adds a built-in active preamp. It has a selectable 18 or 28 dB of additional gain, so you don't need inline amplification in your signal chain. But it has a preamp bypass option that reverts to the original SM7B performance. Microphone retails for $499, and products of this class are often sold at significant discount from dealers. We see more and more products introduced into the market native to the cloud right from the start. Here's one from the company Air, AIIR, the software company. It calls this the first fully cloud-native music scheduling software for radio. The company thinks that familiar scheduling software is outdated and frustrating to use. This product is accessible through any browser. No desktop app installation needed, no on-site configuration or remote desktop software. You can log in from anywhere, including from an iPad, and adjust your upcoming music logs and then deliver them to the station. It's easy to get started with existing libraries. It supports imports from Music One or any system that can produce CSV files like Music Master, G Selector, and Station Playlist. This is the same company that makes the automation software called Playout One. They also do websites, apps, and metadata management, and they're represented in the United States by Premier Networks. Also on the floor, Nautel is trying to encourage more stations to adopt HD radio. So it has come up with a test drive program to allow broadcasters to try HD radio out for up to 6 months. Now, this is for customers who are going to buy or lease a GV2 transmitter. You don't get that part at no cost. But Nautel is now able to provide Omnia audio processing as well as the HD importer, the exporter, and the XGen as a software load for a trial period. And then the audio processing, the digital coding, and the synchronization all run inside the transmitter. So after the end of the test period, the broadcaster can decide to continue with all or partial implementation of HD. And if it's not the time isn't right, the transmitter will default to traditional FM. But Nautel says this way stations can try out revenue generating opportunities. They can experiment with formats or try pop-up stations and see the impact of album art and graphics on listener engagement. This has nothing to do with radio, but everyone who saw it in the aisle stopped to look. This is an AT&T network connected robotic dog. It can be used for public safety, defense, law enforcement, fire departments, and commercial customers. It was interesting to see how people responded to it. Some people thought it was creepy. Most people seemed to think it was cute. I found myself talking to it like I would to a dog. I took this clip just to give people an idea. You can't hear the audio, but it gives you a sense of the way that the thing can move around. This can swim. It can be equipped with radar. It can operate autonomously. You can even rig it up with a drone that can launch and return to its back. AT&T, of course, is expanding its involvement with 5G and the Internet of Things. So you can imagine the applications for search and rescue and military work and hazmat situations. And with that, it's just left to note that the NAB honored Dave Colasar at the show. You know Dave is the engineer for Hubbard Radio, who flipped an AM station in Maryland to the all-digital mode of HD radio. NAB calls him a broadcast engineering pioneer. As you see there, he said that in addition to his efforts to make all-digital AM a reality, he has been an advocate for it in the industry, sharing and documenting his work in technical papers and at conferences, and continuing research on ways to improve all digital AM performance. I'm quietly extra proud because Dave was the recipient of our Radio World Excellence in Engineering Award 4 years ago. And you can read our latest interview with him in our April 24th issue. If you don't get Radio World, you can still see every issue on our website under the resources tab and read it for free in our digital edition format. And just one more tip of the hat. Everyone on this call already knows that Conrad Troutman is a fine fellow. Now it's official. The Society of Broadcast Engineers elevated 3 members to the rank of fellow, including Conrad. He is Chief Technology Officer of Cumulus Media, and he joined the company in 2000 as Westwood One's Executive Vice President for Technology. But he's been involved with SBE since the mid-1980s. He's been on the national board. You all know about his contributions to Chapter 15, and he serves on the NAB Radio Technology Committee. This is the highest membership level in SBE. Fellows are nominated by their peers, and they have to have made significant contributions. Over 60 years, 89 people have been honored, along with Conrad, R.J. Russell on the left, and Andrea Cummis, who are with Ted Hand, the president of NAB. One of Conrad's nominations called him an invaluable mentor and technical resource. Another called him a true gentleman who can communicate with a group of engineers one moment and then walk into a boardroom and present a level of confidence like no other the next. And I will vote for that. With that, I will say thank you for inviting me, and I really appreciate the time.
Thanks so much, Paul. And Andy Cummins is also a member of our Chapter 15. So we took 2/3 of the fellows, which is amazing. Just amazing. But I would like to open the floor. Well, first of all, I want to see how many folks here. You can either put your hands up with the little cartoony thing or your hand in person. Have a subscription to Radio World. I actually don't recall a time when I didn't. and that's going back quite a ways. And I've said it before, is I do like the magazine format a little better than the newspaper format that we got years ago. Well, with that being said, let's open the floor if anybody has any questions for Paul.
I should add too, Jeff, that if anybody wants to get Radio World and hasn't been and needs some help with our circulation department, let me know. I mean, there are several different ways we deliver it, but if you're not reading the regular print issue, read the digital edition. If you're not doing that, we've got the daily Smart Brief newsletter that oftentimes encapsulates a quick read, and then we've got those free ebooks too.
So you can just go on the radio, was it radioworld.com, and
Right.
you can subscribe.
Yep.
Because
There's a subscribe button there. Yep.
Yep. So, I would think there was something terribly wrong with the world if my Radio World didn't show up on time. I also want to kind of repeat what you had said. I was in the Central Hall and I didn't get to really leave. I did wander at one point over to the West Hall, but the Central Hall did exactly what you said. Sunday was a bit light. Monday was very busy, and then Tuesday and Wednesday it really dropped off. But the Wednesday is known as vendor day, so everybody in the booth goes to look at the other booths, and I certainly made as much a use out of that as I could. So yet again, anybody else have any comments? Who was there? Did you see anything cool on the floor that Paul may not have mentioned?
I just had a question. I'm not going to bother Paul too much because I've already bothered him enough this week. But
Hello, Andy.
Paul, David Antoine and Jeff Williams are with me. I kidnapped them. They're over at Hofstra today,
guys.
at SBE, the SBE 15 East offices. A question I had, I saw something about Nautel doing a free HD trial. I'm very interested in that for the RHU station. We have a Nautel VS 2 that would love to have an HD on it, and we were actually talking about 30 minutes
Andy,
ago.
that'll only work with the GV2, so it's only 5 power levels. So,
wow.
Whoops. But HD licenses for a non-com are pretty cheap. I think they're like $5,000 or something like that. I may be mistaken on that, but I think
the last quote I got from Jeff to do the whole thing was like almost $20K, but that might be a quote.
Right, but that's hardware, and I don't know if it would be $20K now because your importer exporter is all one device. You should get some fresh pricing on that because you can do that. But
okay,
it's the GV. So GV2 will start shipping June, or they're taking orders, I think, in June, and will ship shortly thereafter. That was in the dealer meeting. I was very intrigued by that, and sat down and questioned them further on how that would work, because I think that's important to help the industry.
Cool.
And let's remind the folks too, if you don't make it out to Vegas, and frankly, it's really has changed over the years. I've gone out there quite a few times on company dime, and companies aren't sending people really, especially from the East Coast. So keep in mind, in October is NAB New York at the Javits Center, and our chapter SBE 15 keeps on trying to push to do a little more each year. And last year we did some presentations. Andy was part of that, which was fun. Alex Roman did one, and we're planning on doing that again, and possibly, expanding, possibly doing a meeting there, and more, maybe certification. So if you didn't get out to Vegas, we always have New York here. We're lucky enough to have that. Was there anybody else who's on this call who made it out there and saw something? Well, I know,
Jeff.
David, you had the NS workshop going on.
Yeah, and we were very proud. We actually on the media over IP NS, we actually sold out. We were turning people away because there were no more seats. So for 2 days we were discussing media over IP, and the nice thing is people came in and stayed. We had an average age of 35. Which is a lot lower than average SBE audiences. It was really good. I did write some reaction in Radio World, as Paul might tell people, and it was really a great experience. Jeff Welton did a separate Ennis on RF across the hall, and I know he had good attendance as well. I thought the show was not as crowded as possible. I noticed in the South Wing, or I think it's the South Wing, where a lot of the TV was, it was like the booths that people forgot about, especially upstairs. Upstairs was almost a ghost town. Though I know Rhodey and Schwartz were upstairs and Everts, but I mean that there was plenty of room to walk around. There was no crowds, and downstairs there was it could have been condensed into one floor easily. There was a lot of space in the halls, especially if you went to the back of the halls. They were draping curtained off, so they could have really lost the building and condensed the show, and it would have been fine. So that
I
was
did
my
hear.
reaction.
I
And I
heard good.
also felt that radio really didn't have a full place, even though the West Hall had a lot. I mean, the Central Hall still had some there as well. So, and there was no, the app sort of stunk. So if you were looking for a company, you really couldn't find some things, and I saw no rhyme or reason where some of the booths were.
So to dovetail, I agree with you on the app, Dave, and thank you for doing what you did, because I know you put a lot of effort into doing the Ennis. And by the way, just a plug for SB 22, they have an Ennis workshop coming up, I think in the beginning of June. And that's on SBE22.org or something like that. Jeff, you may have more information on that one.
Yeah, I'm actually plugging that on the
Yeah.
SBE
On
social
national.
on national. Yes.
The other thing I wanted to point out is my observation is the NUG has really taken a lot of the sessions that you would have paid for years ago with a full conference badge, and they've put it into that 3 or more, 4 hours. If you spent the day with Nautel, it was well spent, because in the morning you had the NUG. In the afternoon, they did another meeting, another group talking about HD and just talking about radio technology. And there was a lot to garner out of that. And the NUG doesn't cost anything. They also, I think they were streaming that as well. And that, if you back that up with the work that Paul does, and you see him out on the floor, and he's very busy at this point, but for times like this and throughout the year, I want to thank Paul for continuing to keep up on the technology and writing what he does about it, because there are some things that, you know, in the course of a day, we're so busy, we don't have a chance to, but to be able to sit down at night or before bed and read what his observations were or what he's presenting. I want to say thank you for that, Paul. That is a true service to the industry.
Thank you, bud. Thank you very much.
My favorite part of NAB is the first day where everybody is lined up like the start of the Kentucky Derby, and they open the doors and there's a pack of the nerds, so to speak. Everybody has to be like on the floor immediately. But I did notice, because of the Nautel NUG, there was less people at the beginning, but that's always, everybody just wants to be on the floor first. I'm not really sure why, but they do. And it's always fun to see that every year. Kind of brings the energy up.
Jeff, the NUG was great. It was so informative. And also the other thing that was informative that really didn't get a lot of press was on the second day, Dielectric ran a breakfast, and it was really informative.
Hmm.
I don't know if I heard about that or saw that, or maybe I didn't get an email, or maybe I
It's
didn't
all
get
who
to
you
that
know,
page in
bud.
Radio World.
It's all who you know.
Why didn't you tell me?
I found myself as having too many potential meetings. And you can only do so much when you're there, and it's for someone like me, it's just nonstop. But it was good. It was good. It was kind of more settled for me of who I was seeing and my connections. But I made the most of every minute that I was there. And if you didn't meet Keith, you were out of luck. And the friendliest guy in broadcasting.
He certainly is.
Hey,
So
hey,
I know
Jeff?
we have just 2 minutes left, but I thought I would expand on one of the slides that Paul had, which was the super hi-fi one. They had a big presence this year, and if you don't know who they are, you will, because in addition to supporting Odyssey's streams, the direction that they're heading is a fully in the cloud radio station experience. So you wouldn't need a music scheduler. You no longer need an automation system, and it would have integration into your commercial scheduling and traffic system. And the step that they're working towards, and I think that they were saying should be available this fall, and I know that they're anxious to try and get it in place for the fall NAB, is the ability to break into it live and go live with their cloud-based systems. So one of the things that we found at our company that people had issue with using a stream to run your radio station is people are concerned about the stability and the delivery method. If you're taking it over the internet, what happens if the internet goes down, your station goes off the air? That Orban device that you talked about, Paul, has like a 3-hour backup in it or something, so that if there is a lost connection, that it'll continue to run whatever's stored on the hard drive of it to keep you on the air while you're working on getting your internet back. So it's a really interesting technology. It basically marginalizes Audio Vault or NextGen or all these other automation systems, Wide Orbit. It runs it completely from the cloud. So I thought that was pretty fascinating.
And we have them as a presenter coming up, I believe.
We do. I asked Zach to do a presentation for us, so I'm sure he'll talk more about what I just mentioned.
Super.
Hey, Jeff, before we end the meeting, I do want to touch what you said before and congratulate Herb Squire again for being named Engineer of the Year. I don't, if you don't know, Herb has been around the industry for as long as I've been around the industry, or probably longer. He's let's face it, he was the board operator for Gene Shepard, chief engineer of quite a few radio stations in town, QXR and so forth. Herb, why don't you say something?
What would you like me to say?
Like you to use your radio voice, Herb, like your old radio days and your radio air checks.
Oh, yes, that's right. My old days in radio.
Here's
And
a
if
guy
you don't know,
also,
Herb
he's
was a
on the
former
air
chair
as
of
well,
the
Dave.
15.
Yeah, yes. Herb was the chairman, and if you'd like to take it over when I'm done in a couple of months, feel free. So Paul McLane, thank you so much. I don't know how to thank you enough. This is what, year number 3? Can we
that might
time.
be right.
Yeah, I think it is.
you have your calendar there? Can we book you for next year?
I think that well, listen, I just want to point out that there's a lot of real good friends of Radio World and of me personally on this call. And, whether that's, somebody like Herb Squire that Radio World's been covering since the days of stacking algorithms, or whether it's David Antoine bailing me out with a power cord for my phone, which he literally did at the New York show last year, I think it was. You guys are friends, and I hope we keep it that way. So thank you for having me back.
Oh yeah, you're always a part of the SBE 15 family, and you're invited to any function we have, holiday party, barbecue, and we always feed our members very well. So you're always welcome. And we hope to see you at some of, we'll probably see you at NAB New York, if not before then. So thank you so much. I believe it's dinner time. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us. Please remember to subscribe to SBE 15 New York City.